Hello, my darlings. Mother Raven here with another little group of tales this time to keep you entertained. I've picked a selection of fantasy vignettes from Lord Dunsany's 51 Tales. I found them charming and endearing, and I hope you find them the same. Charon. Charon leaned forward and rode. All things were one with his weariness. It was not with him a matter of years or centuries, but of wide floods of time, and an old heaviness and a pain in the arms that had become for him part of the scheme that the gods had made, and was of a piece with eternity. If the gods had sent him a contrary wind, it would have divided all time in his memory into two equal slabs. So gray were all things where he was, that if any radiance lingered a moment among the dead, on the face of such a queen perhaps as Cleopatra, his eyes could not have perceived it. It was strange that the dead nowadays were coming in such numbers. They were coming in thousands, where they used to come in 50s. It was neither Chiron's duty nor his wont to ponder in his grey soul why these things might be. Chiron leaned forward and rode. Then no one came for a while. It was not usual for the gods to send no one down from earth for such a space, but the gods knew best. Then one man came alone, and the little shade sat shivering on a lonely bench, and the great boat pushed off. Only one passenger. The gods knew best, and great and weary Chiron rode on and on beside the little, silent, shivering ghost. And the sound of the river was like a mighty sigh that grief in the beginning had sighed among her sisters. And that could not die like the echoes of human sorrow failing on earthly hills, but was as old as time and the pain in Chiron's arms. Then the boat from the slow grey river loomed up to the coast of the Dis, and the little silent shade, still shivering, stepped ashore, and Chiron turned the boat to go wearily back to the world. Then the little shadow spoke that had been a man. "I am the last," he said. No one had ever made Chiron smile before. No one had ever made him weep. The Sphinx at Giza. I saw the other day the Sphinx's painted face. She had painted her face in order to ogle time, and he had spared no other painted face in all the world but hers. Delilah was younger than she, and Delilah is dust. Time hath loved nothing but this worthless painted face. I do not care that she is ugly, nor that she has painted her face so that she only lures his secret from time. Time dallies like a fool at her feet when he should be smiting cities. Time never wearies of her silly smile. There are temples all about her that he has forgotten to spoil. I saw an old man go by, and time never touched him. Time that had carried away the 7 gates of Thebes. She has tried to bind him with ropes of eternal sand. She had hoped to oppress him with the pyramids. He lies there in the sand with his foolish hair spread about her paws. If she ever finds his secret, we will put out his eyes so that he shall find no more of our beautiful things. There are lovely gates in Florence that I fear he will carry away. We have tried to bind him with song and with old customs, but they only held him for a little while, and he has always smitten us and mocked us. When he is blind, he shall dance to us and make sport. Great clumsy Time shall stumble and dance, who like to kill little children and can hurt even the daisies no longer. Then shall our children laugh at him who slew Babylon's winged bulls and smote great numbers of the gods and fairies. when he is shorn of his hours and his years. We will shut him up in the pyramid of Cheops, in the great chamber where the sarcophagus is. Thence we will lead him out when we give our feasts. He shall ripen our corn for us and do menial work. We will kiss thy painted face, O Sphinx, if thou wilt betray us time. And yet I fear that in his ultimate anguish he may take hold blindly of the world and the moon, and slowly pull down upon him the house of man. The Guest. A young man came into an ornate restaurant at 8 o'clock in London. He was alone, but 2 places had been laid at a table which he had reserved for him. He had chosen the dinner very carefully, by letter a week before. The waiter asked him about the other guest. "You probably won't see him till the coffee comes," the young man told him, and so he was served alone. Those at adjacent tables might have noticed the young man continually addressing the empty chair, and carrying on a monologue with it throughout his elaborate dinner. "I think you knew my father," he said to it over the soup. "I sent for you this evening," he continued, "because I want you to do me a good turn. In fact, I must insist on it." There was nothing eccentric about the man except for his habit of addressing an empty chair. Certainly he was eating as good a dinner as any sane man could wish for. After the burgundy had been served, he became more voluble in his monologue. Not that he spoiled his wine by drinking excessively. "We have several acquaintances in common," he said. "I met King Seti a year ago in Thebes. I think he has altered very little since you knew him. I thought his forehead a little low for a king's. Cheops has left the house that he built for your reception. He must have prepared for you for years and years. I suppose you have seldom been entertained like that. I ordered this dinner over a week ago. I thought then that a lady might have come with me. But as she wouldn't, I've asked you. She may not, after all, be as lovely as Helen of Troy. Was Helen lovely? Not when you knew her, perhaps. You were lucky in Cleopatra. You must have known her when she was in her prime. You never knew the mermaids, nor the fairies, nor the lovely goddesses of long ago. That's where we have the best of you." He was silent when the waiter came to his table, but rambled merrily on as soon as they left, still turned to the empty chair. "You know, I saw you here in London only the other day. You were on a motor bus going down Ludgate Hill. It was going much too fast. London is a good place, but I shall be glad enough to leave it. It was in London that I met the lady that I was speaking about. If it hadn't been for London, I probably shouldn't have met her. And if it hadn't been for London, she probably wouldn't have had so much besides me to amuse her. It cuts both ways." He paused once to order coffee, gazed earnestly at the waiter, and put a sovereign in his hand. "Don't let it be chicory," he said. The waiter brought the coffee, and the young man dropped a tablet of some sort in his cup. "I don't suppose you come here very often," he went on. "Well, you probably want to be going. I haven't taken you too much out of your way. There's plenty for you to do in London." Then, having drunk his coffee, he fell on the floor by the foot of the empty chair, and a doctor who was dining in the room bent over him and announced to the anxious manager the visible presence of the young man's guest. A mistaken identity. Fame, as she walked at evening in a city, saw the painted face of Notoriety, flaunting beneath a gas lamp, and many kneeled unto her in the dirt of the road. "Who are you?" Fame asked to her. "I am Fame," said Notoriety. Then Fame stole softly away, so that no one knew she had gone. And Notoriety presently went forth And all her worshippers rose and followed after, and she led them, as was most meet, to her native pit. The Sphinx in Thebes, Massachusetts. There was a woman in a steel-built city who had all that money could buy. She had gold and dividends and trains and houses, and she had pets to play with, but she had no sphinx. So she besought them to bring her a live sphinx, and therefore they went to the menageries, and then to the forests and the desert places, and yet could find no sphinx. And she would have been content with the little lion, but that one was already owned by a woman she knew, so they had to search the world again for a sphinx. And still there was none. But they were not men that is easy to baffle. And at last they found a sphinx in a desert at evening, watching a ruined temple, whose god she had eaten hundreds of years ago when her hunger was on her. And they cast chains on her, who was still with ominous stillness, and took her westward with them, and brought her home. And so the Sphinx came to the steel-built city, and the woman was very glad that she owned a Sphinx. But the Sphinx stared long into her eyes one day, and softly asked a riddle of the woman. And the woman could not answer, and she died. And the Sphinx is silent again, and none knows what she will do. The reward. One spirit goes further in dreams than it does by day. Wandering once by night from a factory city, I came to the edge of hell. The place was foul with cinders and cast-off things, and jagged, half-buried things with shapeless edges. And there was a huge angel with a hammer building in plaster and steel. I wondered what he did in that dreadful place. I hesitated, and then asked him what he was building. "We are adding to hell," he said, "to keep pace with the times." "Don't be too hard on them," I said, for I had just come out of a compromising age and a weakening country. The angel did not answer. "It won't be as bad as the old hell, will it?" I said. "Worse," said the angel. "How can you reconcile it with your conscience as a minister of grace," I said, "to inflict such a punishment?" They talked like this in the city whence I had come, and I could not avoid the habit of it. "They have invented a new cheap yeast," said the angel. I looked at the legend on the walls of the hell that the angel was building. The words were written in flame. Every 15 seconds they changed their color. "Yeasto, the great new yeast. It builds up body and brain, and something more." "They shall look at it forever," the angel said. "But they drove a perfectly legitimate trade," I said. "The law allowed it." The angel went on hammering into place the huge steel uprights. "You are very revengeful," I said. "Do you never rest from doing this terrible work?" "I rested one Christmas day," the angel said, "and looked and saw little children dying of cancer. I shall go on now until the fires are lit." "It's very hard to prove," I said, "that the yeast is as bad as you think." "After all," I said, "they must live." And the angel made no answer, but went on building his hell. Furrow maker. He was all in black, but his friend was dressed in brown. Members of 2 old families. "Is there any change in the way you build your houses?" said he in black. "No change," said the other. "And you?" "We change not," he said. A man went by in the distance, riding a bicycle. "He is always changing," said the one in black. "Of late, almost every century. He is uneasy, always changing." "He changes the way he builds his house, does he not?" said the brown one. "So my family said," said the other. "They say he has changed of late." "They say he takes much to the cities," the brown one said. "My cousin, who lives in the belfries, tells me so," said the black one. He says he is much in cities, and there he grows lean, said the brown one. Yes, he grows lean. Is it true what they say, said the brown one. Caw, said the black one. Is it true he cannot live many centuries? No, said the black one. Furrowmaker will not die. We must not lose Furrowmaker. He has been foolish of late. He has played with smoke and is sick. His engines have wearied him, and his cities are evil. Yes, he is very sick. But in a few centuries he will forget his folly, and we shall not lose Furrowmaker. Time out of mind he has delved, and my family have got their food from the raw earth behind him. He will not die. But they say, do they not, said the brown one, his cities are noisome, and that he grows sick in them, and can run no longer, and that it is with him as it is with us when we grow too many, and the grass has a bitter taste in the rainy season, and our young grow bloated and die. Who says it? Replied the black one. Pigeon, the brown one answered. He came back all dirty, and hair went down to the edge of the cities once. He says it too. Man was too sick to chase him. He thinks that man will die, and his wicked friend Dog with him. Dog will die, that nasty fellow Dog. He will die too, the dirty fellow. Pigeon and hare, said the black one. We shall not lose Furrowmaker. Who told you he will not die? His brown friend said. Who told me? The black one said. My family and his have understood each other. Times out of mind. We know what follies will kill each other, and what each may survive. And I say that Furrowmaker will not die. He will die, said the brown one. Caw, said the other. And the man said in his heart, just one invention more. There's something I want to do with petrol yet, and then I will give it all up and go back to the woods. I simply could not resist that last one, as my own family was so featured in it. Thank you, my darlings, for coming and listening to my poor old stories once again. If you like, please like and subscribe. And I will meet you next time under the trees.